Hey everybody, this is Dawn Zoldai, and welcome back to your Full Tilt Tech Industry Leadership Talks podcast. We have with us today an incredible leader and a friend of ours who's been on our other podcasts as well, Yoav Amitai, the CEO of Elsight. Great to see you again, Yoav.
Hi everyone. Hi Don. Always nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, for those that are noticing, Yoav is in the middle of some forest and he's actually on vacation in the Netherlands. So, we're going to talk about balance later. He and I talked about this before we got on, but this podcast is all about leadership. And, we ask our guests to provide the theme they'd like to discuss. And Yoav picked a really interesting theme about leading by example and communicating boldly. I know that's kind of a lot to unpack, but before we do that, I want to say two things. First of all, everybody out there, we are live. So jump in, ask your questions, tell us where you're from, give us positive encouragement. We love all of that. Secondly, make sure if you're loving this content, which we hope you do, you go ahead and subscribe to fullcrew.io and like us. And if you click the little bell, you'll always get notifications of when our next episode is. Before we dig into your theme, Yoav, can you give people a little bit of background about yourself?
Absolutely. So, growing in Israel, like any other or most of the Israelis, starting my career after school in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Forces. I was in the kind of the paratrooper field, and I was there for 4 years. There. So after officer schools and everything, so I guess we will talk about it where the leadership is starting. Probably that's a good school to do that. And after that, I graduated to mechanical engineering and find my way to the drone space with Elsight. That I'm not one of the founders of the company, but today I'm almost 2 years in the CEO role position after being 5 years with the company. So that's a very quick run over my background that is connected to this show today.
Okay, awesome. We're gonna peel that back a little bit, but I want to really go back further in time. Because
Hmm.
you pick this theme of leading by example. When I hear someone say that, it makes me think you had some really great examples of leadership growing up as a child. So
Um,
can you kind of maybe walk us through who maybe along that path really inspired you from a leadership standpoint?
yeah, so I think it's starting from, again, like you said, leading by example is from everything, from parenthood to everything. Even though, like you said, I'm now on a family vacation doing this call and not with my kids, but that we'll talk about it later. But when I'm saying leader by example, it's starting with never ask you people, your kids, your whatever to do something that you are not demand from yourself. And I think this is everything where everything started, and I can go starting from my parents as a kid, and then all the way up from, I wouldn't say all my teachers, but probably some of them, obviously through the army. And after that, I can pick pretty much in each one of those um, points on my lifehood that I have someone that never demand from the others what he didn't demand from himself. And I think this is what the really heart of this topic of leading by example, and make sure that you are there, whatever it is, on the field with your people. You are doing what you required from them. You are doing yourself. That's exactly that. So I'm trying to think about a specific person that plays perfectly into this role. I think I will say my parents kind of were in this point that will never ask you to do something that they are not. We are the parents and you are the kid, and you should do that. Obviously, there are rules, and they can do some stuff, and I cannot or could have done some stuff. But yeah, definitely started there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And, I think there's that saying, leaders eat last, right? Leaders do
Yeah,
windows, right? They roll up their sleeves and things like this. It's one thing to talk about doing something or, demanding loyalty or respect from people, but you have to earn that. I
absolutely.
think you would agree, especially with our kind of, the military background, although in different services that we share. for different countries. This idea that a real leader is leading by example. So, this component of communicating boldly, how does that play into this idea of leading by example?
So I think putting everything on the table, both the good stuff and the bad stuff, it's something that people need to know, that you will always be honest with them. You will say what you think. You will say what is the situation. We'll probably get into that. As a startup, we all confront very challenging times, not only today, but in general in the livelihood of a startup. But having your people know exactly what a situation is, I think this is where you can earn their trust and to follow you basically, and to be able to go. And even if it's something really bad happens, still you need to communicate it correctly. I'm not saying, just put everything on the table like that. You need to communicate it in the way that people will understand what they want them to understand. But I think those two are very connected, because this is what creating trust. And I want people to come to me when I'm doing mistakes to tell me what the mistake was. And that's exactly the leading by example, where it's connected to the communicating boldly. And many people that's working with us at Elsight today, for example, find it very interesting sitting in, a boardroom, having a conversation, whatever the topic is. It can be an extremely strategic topic or day-to-day topic. And everyone have seats at the table and can say what they think. And the fact that I'm sitting as a CEO doesn't mean that I'm the right one and I'm correct one. I need to be able to communicate what I want to, and to be able to explain what is my position, and not because I have ranks of my shoulders. Taking again the example of the army.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, a ton actually. And you started with this idea of being transparent. I agree with you 100%, Yoav. I think there is also that saying, I'm throwing out all these trite sayings today, I guess, that, bad news doesn't get better with time. So many,
Absolutely.
right? So many times people, it's the cover up, it's the lack of information that's going to lose either your internal or external stakeholders if you're not being honest with them about what is happening in real time.
Right.
So I agree 100%. Transparency is something. And then that word you used, trust, we had Cameron Shell. I know Cam as well from Dragonfly.
Yeah.
And that was really
Hmm.
his theme. He picked leading with trust. And this idea of being open to having people give you that hard feedback to yourself as a leader, in addition to be willing to communicate boldly, as you say, and give it to others. Um, so,
Absolutely.
you know,
In the end of
yeah,
the day, sorry to stop you, but how do you earn trust? You earn trust if you are open with the people, if they know that you will do whatever you demand from them, you will demand from yourself. They know that you will 100% of the time will tell them exactly the truth and not try to go walk around it. And I think even like you said, if it's very hard news and it's not getting better over time, it's better
right.
to do it as fast as possible, so people will know that if something happened, you will be the first one. Because once you start to have, for example, in companies, rumors in the hallway, that's where the trust goes.
Well,
So
that's
yeah,
cancer. Once you
exactly.
have gossip and rumors in your organization, it's like a cancer that you're going to have to cut that out, because
Absolutely.
it will eat your organization alive completely. But back
Yeah.
to your point about leading by example, I had a boss, and maybe you have a story like this. I had a boss that, first of all, first conversation with this person, just my most important thing is loyalty. And I'm thinking, if you have to tell me that, that's telling me something right there. Second thing was, this person would roll into the office at 10:30 or so in the morning, and everybody else, like the normal military duty hours, right? 7:30
Yeah.
to 4:30 or 5. That's just normal. We usually
Hmm.
work longer than that, to be honest. And that was
Right.
just steady state. I'm not talking in conflict or national security incident.
Yeah. Of course.
um, so here's a person who's like, you need to be loyal to me. I expect you to do that. And everybody knows they have to be at work at 7:30, and this person rolls in at 10:30. It created a lot of you know, rumors, gossip, lack of trust amongst the worker population because, you know, and I have no doubt because I'm a morning person too, and because of the person's rank, they had a computer at their house. So I
Yeah,
guarantee they were firing off emails at 5:30 in the morning to all those other general officers. But to
right.
the people, they didn't see that. What they saw was someone coming in at 10:30, going to lunch, going to the gym for an hour, and leaving at 4:30.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have a story like that that left an impression on you of maybe something that you would not do from the standpoint of leading by example.
Yeah, I have a lot of them, and I think you gave a good example from no, that in the army you see it very boldly that there are those commanders and people that are managing their people because they have ranks on their shoulders, and those who are doing it because people want to follow them and people want to be led by them. And I think you see it very, very clear in the army because in the end of the day, when you are in a battlefield and you have fire shooting above your head, I'll just give you this example as a very good example that can be argued, and someone will tell you, "Go ahead. I mean, let's run ahead," and you find yourself with nobody behind you because people don't trust you, or you are not leading because of the example, but you are leading because of the ranks you have. That's exactly the moment. And again, it's not happening on the battlefield. It's starting in the very early days when, like you said, for example, if you are going out to run and you said to your people, you need to run today, whatever distance is, and
Yeah.
you are sitting in your office doing whatever, that's a very I mean, in my eyes, that's very bad thing to do. And just one very simple
Yeah.
example, but
Yes.
I think it's a very, again, very bold one.
No, I totally agree. Towards the end of my career, you know, I had a pretty bad injury, a couple of bad injuries in a row. And you're right, PT in the military is something you got to be out there as a leader, you got to be doing it. And when I could no longer do that, I realized it's probably time for me to retire, even though knew fully, you know, like, look, lawyers fly a desk, right? Like
Yeah,
I knew I could do what I was called to do, but on a weekly or daily basis, I also felt I wasn't being that example that especially the younger people in my unit needed to see. And,
right.
you know, I ultimately made the call, right, to retire. But so many people don't. And I think that's where you see, you know, it's like you get that retired on active duty, the road, we call it in the US air, you know,
Yeah.
military, in the military. But let's flip the script for a second because you said something way earlier, Yoav, that I want to pick up on about when you were in schooling with the military, some military schools, that you did learn some positive leadership lessons and that informed this leading by example and communicating boldly theme that we're talking about today. So, what were some of the things that you took away from your military schooling that could inform businesses, you know, tech businesses that are out there right now, or anybody really?
So I think it's also connected to the last point you made that when I'm saying, for example, again, going out to run with your people or go shooting with them, taking the army example because that's the easiest one in this sport, that doesn't mean that you need to be the fastest runner or the best shooter. That's not the case. And
Right,
people sometimes make the mistake that think that they need to be the best in everything, and then their people think they need to be the best in everything, and they cannot admit that they are bad in something, and then you need to bring someone who is better than them in this place. So
right,
knowing that you are not the best in everything and bring the right people to work with you, and I especially use the word to work with you and not work for you or anything like that, but work with you because you know that you will never close the gap, or why should you close the gap if you can bring someone who is much better than you? And Steve Jobs says once that we hire smart people to tell us what to do or something like that. And that's exactly the point. So I think this is what I learned also that's connected to the point that you just asked, because saying that you don't need to be the best one, but you need to be the one that know um, again how to do this leadership and to be the one that people can trust and to be able to be transparent and to be with your people. I think this is the point, and don't be afraid that sometimes you will fail. I mean, we all fail, and sometimes you won't be the best in something, but get it. And as someone that becomes CEO in a pretty early stage in my career, I would say that imposter syndrome is one of the things that you need to know how to work with, because that's something that is going into everyone's mind. And once I figure out that everyone has it, and I'm one of them, so you need to understand what are the gaps, what are the places you are not good at, what are the places you are good at, and just bring the right people to work with you to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, so again, I love talking to you, Yoav,
Sorry
because
for open so many, yeah,
no,
so
I
many
love it.
brackets.
No, this is great because you are opening a lot of doors, but you know, at the end of the day, they're all connected, right? They're all leading us to one place,
Right.
which is being a great leader to your people and to your company or organization. You know, you kind of alluded to it earlier when you said, you know, when I have people at the table, I want to hear what they have to say. You just said gather people that are different than you, you know, that have different perspectives. You don't have to be the best, but find the people that are the best to work with you, you know,
Right.
to the extent that you can. What you're talking about there, just like put it in one word, it's called diversity, and, you know, add equity and inclusion, right, to that. And, you know, we had Hui Tran on here from NASA, I believe in our last episode, talking about leading diverse organizations. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're just more successful, period, dot. And you're absolutely right. The people that recognize their own limitations, the leaders, and fill those gaps with others that, you know, have those qualities that they lack, instead of being intimidated by those people, or just building a team that looks and sounds and thinks like them, you
Yeah.
know. So how do you, as a practical matter, I think this is the probably, if I was in the audience, I would be wondering, so how do you do that, Yoav? How do you find those people? Because talking to so many other experts in the tech industry, that seems to be one of the greatest challenges, is finding that diverse talent to bring to the table.
So I think one of the, I would say secret, even though I'm not sure it's a secret, by my theme in hiring people is hire for talent and not for experience. And it's not right for any position. There are positions that you need to have a lot of experience sorry, in other places that you did need to have also the experience. But most cases, if you hire for talent and not for experience, you see that people, when you give them the opportunity, if they are the right people, they will take it in two hands. And then while you're doing the recruiting processes you are doing, try to think on what do you want to hire for? What are the values they want to hire for? What are the people you want to hire for? Listen very carefully to what the people question you on their interview. So really like people who is kind of saying what they think on the first or the second interview. Obviously, inconvenient for everyone to be in such environment, but still there are those that not agree with everything you're saying. I think those are the good points to pick up when you are interviewing people. Understand those are the people that will come to you and you will say, I think you are wrong here, and I think you're wrong in there. And I'm not looking for people that will tell me all day what I'm doing wrong. I don't want that to go out, but I want to
Right.
have people that have the not sure if the right word is bravery, but to have their word and to say, we don't think like that, we think the opposite. And this is what you need to looking for when you're interviewing. Obviously, you need to look for different kind of position. You need to look for other stuff. But I think on the personal level, this is what we are looking for in Elsight, having people that know what they want to do, they want how to deliver, not all the time they have the experience, most of the time, or not most, but sometimes they don't have the experience, but they do have the aptitude to go and push things forward and to learn a lot. And I think those are the right people. So it's a combination of the two, I think.
Well, it sounds like, if I was to synopsize what you just said, you're looking for people who communicate boldly. But, you know, that really presupposes that a company or a leader like yourself knows your company's values. You know, I just had Anna Wiesenthal Birch on the Dawn of Drones podcast, and we were talking about developing industry leaders and a little bit about, you know, she's the vice president of people operations for Skydio. And, you know, she talked about what, like you said, you see these themes, right? Which
Yeah.
she said, you know, we don't necessarily look for experience. we're looking for qualities. And, one of the qualities she raised was curiosity. Well, think about that for a second. For a company like Skydio, who's developing hardware and, with artificial intelligence, autonomous drones, someone that's curious and willing to learn or like explore other things, that's really it makes sense, a quality that company is looking for. Besides communicating boldly, like what values, for example, do you feel like make for a really good person in the tech industry, or in particular, kind of someone that Elsight, would be interested in from a leadership quality standpoint?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the values, even though I would say again, openly and boldly, I would say that it's something that we feel, we all in Elsight feel still that we can strengthen those and be more working with the values as a baseline for decision making and everything. Besides having it on the wall, we need to be more to work according to them. But I think people that either coming as visitors to the office or meeting with us, they feel it in our day to day. But I think that the other point is that not only for leaders, but for every person, in the organization, because we're still relatively small organization, and when you have a small organization, you need everyone to be fully accountable. So ownership is one of our most important values, to be owner to what you are doing, and to have ownership. It's much more than deliver what you need to do. It's exactly what you said, being curious, think outside of the box or outside of your comfort zone, and look for what else needs to be done. Because when you are an organization that is pushing the envelope, both on the technical level, on the business level, on industry level, as our ecosystem that is still evolve and still maturing, I think having those people that are curious are much more important than those that know how should I say it, take a task that someone gave them and do that. I want people that will think about what needs to get done, being fully owner to what they're doing, never mind if they're doing engineering, if they're doing marketing, if they're doing whatever they're doing. I think ownership in a relatively small, because for two main reasons. First of all, again, I think that's what creates a healthy organization, that people want to take decision, they feel comfortable to take decision, and there is no bottlenecks of decision making. And on the other hand, speaking of managerial capacity, let's call it, we all extremely busy across the organization. I'm not talking only about me, and we need people that can push themselves and not need to be all the time need to get the right word and need to be told what to do, but thinking from their head. I think that's very important, and that's exactly the people that we're looking for.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind when you say that is initiative, right? So people that can kind of seize that initiative and just get things done without having to be told to do everything. Right. Absolutely. So let's switch gears for a second, but still obviously on this topic of leading by example. Now I'm going to pick on you for a minute. Right? So balance. That is one of the toughest nuts to crack as a leader. And, my guess is right now, Yoav, not to make you feel bad, but you probably
no worries.
You probably have people in your organization that might be watching this or will watch it later, and it'll click to them that like, hey, my boss was on vacation working. What do you do to try to, and I know you and I talked about this, I know it just kind of fell into this place, and you wanted to maintain the appointment, but how, like, what do you do to try to go out of your way to give a balanced example for your people? Because we all know that people that are overworked, right, they're exhausted, they're not happy, morale will sink, and then so do productivity and really profits at the end of the day if you're a business. How do you walk that line?
So first of all, if we have people from Elsight watching us, so they all know that they are not expected to do those calls while on the vacation. I just want to make that point clear. So, and by the way, I used to have on my email and Slack and everything, when I sent an email or a Slack message or whatever message I sent after work hours, I used to have this kind of signature in my email said, don't feel obligated to answer this email, and just those are the hours that I'm more comfortable of doing work. Don't feel that you need to reply to this email or something along those lines. That was very important to me, again, to saying that, I mean, I have small children. I have 1.5 years old, 5 and 7. And for me, the time between the PM, the early evening, is the time that I'm spending with the family, either having dinners or doing whatever we're doing outside. And most of the time I'm going back to work around on the late night, because those are the time that need to get work done. And it's not about balance. I have a very good balance in terms of that. But again, communicate to the people that this is what you're expecting from them, and also showing them that this is what we're doing, and being quiet, even though I'm seeing what's going on the email chains, on the Slack channels and everything, trying not to send messages, and to have people the understanding that if someone is off, he is off, and do go out of your skin, I will call it, if you have someone on vacation, and do whatever it takes not to call him just for the sake of giving, exactly like you said, give him the quiet time, needs to get rest. I fully agree with you. In today's crazy world that we have those notifications everywhere, and that's something that we need to know how to shut everything down, be a little calm, being with the family, friends, each one with whomever he wants to be, and take those time off, and let everyone knows that you are in those time off. And doing this kind of conversation, I don't see it as a really work, because it's kind of trying to give example to the people, or I'm not sure if I can take it as an example, but having fun with those types conversation. I will never go into company internal meeting or anything like that while I'm on vacation, or even external meetings. So I am available to the people and everything, but I won't do proactively stuff. That's how I will do it. And again, give people the freedom to understand that we have balance, we have breaks between home and work, and make it very clear those lines. I think that's extremely important.
No,
And
first,
again, not giving a good example with this call. I fully agree that we spoke about it before.
Well, first of all, I give you credit for having the conversation with people, because I think that is at least the first step of, setting those expectations. Like, hey, I've got little kids, and so, when I want to get home at a reasonable hour, I want to eat dinner with them, and that means when my brain starts going at like 8 o'clock at night when they're in bed, I might send an email. I don't expect you to answer that, but I'm sending it because it's on my mind. And, so when you get back in the office the next day, go ahead and answer that. That same boss, I would get these emails on the weekend, like all the time. And I didn't answer them. Like this person never told me don't answer them, but I felt comfortable enough in my own skin. And I figured if I'm doing something wrong, he's going to call me on it. But I'm not going to also what's the word I'm looking for? Not validate that behavior, but I'm not going to reinforce that behavior by ruining my weekend, like having to respond to emails all weekend. Like I'm just not doing it. So I would scan it, because like you said, the notifications come in, and star it or flag it, answer it on Monday. But generally, I would say 99.9% none of this was an emergency. And it's like, but there was never that conversation of, here's why I'm going to send you stuff on Saturday. It was just just sending me stuff on Saturday. It's like, stop, because it just causes stress. Even though I didn't answer it, it was still in the back of my mind always.
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
As a stressor, and so, I think saying things and doing things also can be different. And in fact, I talked to Cam about this when he was on, how you can even tell people, and you can even put it in writing and reinforce and repeat it. Like, I don't expect you to do X because I do X.
Right.
But yet somewhere in their brain, they're still seeing you do it, and they're like, oh, therefore I must, even if you told them. And I think that's the hardest thing to do. So what things do you actually, like, besides telling them, what do you proactively do in the workplace or otherwise to reinforce what you tell them, or to, this idea of leading by example, communicating boldly, giving them space?
So we used to have, actually, we are not doing it anymore because the engagement level wasn't so high, but we used to have in our management meeting, we started every meeting because it was on Sunday, which is our Monday, I mean, the beginning of the week.
Yep.
So no, we are not doing management meeting on Sundays. It's just our first day of the week in Israel. So we used to do kind of a quick overview of what people did over the weekend with their families, with their friends, etc. And that created a very interesting competition, if you will, that what was the nicest thing people does and push them to do better things with their families and everything. And I think that was really, really nice one to do. Again, listening to people, what others give ideas of what can be done. So I think that was really nice about that. In terms again of vacation and having quiet time with the families, I think looking in Elsight, everyone knows that if someone is off, and you can see it today in all those channels, so it's something that we are not bothering him unless it's emergency. And we have those emergency. By the way, I can give you an example. Something like 3 or 4 weeks ago, when Israel was in another, we call it round with Gaza Strip, which we had hard time in Israel. So we did have to call people to come to the office Saturday night to do some work because some system that need to get out for the IDF or something, without getting into too many details. But
Sure.
and people understand it and understand that there are those times that we need to roll our sleeves and to do work, but
Yeah.
we're doing it in extreme cases. We won't do it for commercial cases, let's call them, but we will do it in extreme cases. Again, having those boundaries between the home and the office and everything, and work and work-life balance. So I think this is what we're doing again on a daily basis with our people, and people feel extremely comfortable to get out early. You spoke about it as an example. So I have one day that I'm going out extremely early to be with the kids. I'm picking them up from their kindergartens and daycares and everything, schools, just to be with them for 1 or 2 days a week, depends on the week. And I think those another example that everyone knows where I'm going and what I'm going to do. And again, pushing people to do it with their kids or with their relatives, I think it's very important.
I love that. So communicating boldly is it's by words and by actions. And this idea of taking time off or leaving early to be with your kids, I think as a leader, and look, I'm just going to call it what it is, especially as a guy, as a dad, like that's huge,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as a mom, it was a little bit different and weirder for me, especially as a female leader in the military. I always felt there might be different expectations or biases if I did something like that.
Yeah.
And sadly, I held back sometimes from doing those things. But
Mm-hmm.
one time I did this was when, and I don't think I shared this before, but my kid was little. My oldest son, he's now 23, but I think he was 7. And we were in an ice cream store, and some little girl was there with her a little taekwondo uniform on. And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, would you do that with me?" Now, Yoav, I just started a high-speed job, like one of the most important jobs in the Air Force JAG Corps is to
Mm-hmm.
be a staff judge advocate or the head lawyer, like a general counsel equivalent.
Yeah.
And I was in DC, and I had this office of like 23 people with all the high speed issues you can imagine happening in the Pentagon in DC, because we serviced the Pentagon and a
Yeah.
bunch of these satellite things around there. And I was a brand new lieutenant colonel. I just pinned on, and 4 months in, they give me this job. And my kid looks at me and says, "Will you do this with me?" And we lived traveling in DC is never fun, but it was about 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Yes. Because when else am I going to get to do this? When else is this kid or I have 3 boys. when are they ever going to want to do something athletic with me, or when will I be able
Right.
to do something athletic with them? So we did it, and for two, we me and Reese, and then my younger son Luke, eventually we all got our black belts. It was like a 3-year iteration, several days a week. And I'm really proud of that because, like you said, I left early and I told everybody this is what I'm doing. And it
Yeah.
was great to see other people doing things like this, because, like you said, unless it's a national security issue, we can have a life too, and
Yeah.
still get the mission done.
Yeah.
And I think that's hugely important. So, excellent,
Yeah.
excellent,
Absolutely.
excellent.
And
So
I
go ahead.
agree with you that it is like you said, the difference between mom and dad in that still steady issue, I would say. But I think you start to see the change in that I mean, at least in the commercial world. I'm not sure how it works in the military today, but at least there. And I'm very glad to see that people feel both again, males and females feel very comfortable with being there and understanding that, like speaking about the work-life balance, there should be a parenting balance, let's call it, between the dad and the mother. I think that's extremely important. By the way, both for the kids and for the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so hard to do. And you have got little ones. It it never really gets easier. It just gets different as they get older. Mine are like, men children now, and so it's always an adventure. But all
Yeah,
right.
but we need
So
you need to understand it early, because otherwise you will understand it too late, and then they don't want to spend time with you. I mean, when they are young, I always taking roles in their kindergarten parties that they have in the end of the year and everything. I said, as long as they are not shy for me being on the stage, I will do that, because one day they will tell me, Dad, just don't do it. We don't want to see it on the stage. So I'm taking advantage of that.
very good. That's excellent. All right, so let's see. Let's talk a little bit about we've kind of been talking about it throughout, but very specifically, let's talk about Elsight and your current career. Your military career led you to where you are now. We've talked about some of the policies you have, some of the values you hold. What would you say is kind of the biggest or the most important thing from your perspective as a leader of Elsight, when you're talking about um, leading, communicating boldly?
Um, so I think kind of touched it before, that when I said that being direct with our people, being direct, by the way, with our customers, if something went wrong with the product, for example, and Elsight product is providing connection confidence, that's one of the key building blocks of creating an autonomous mission, right? To have a communication channel that is extremely reliable, and having mistakes there, that's something that will be very hard to recover from. And luckily, or I would say, I give a lot of shout out to our engineering team and to our teams that are doing great job there, that we don't have those cases. But even if something happens, so coming to the customer, say that's what happened and this is what we're doing to overcome it. I think that go through that, and it's not only internally with the people inside the organization, it's also with people outside of the organization. Say it like it is. It's always better than try to go through walkarounds and stuff, because that creates very hard time to overcome, and then you started to forget what you said to whom, and just say it like it is. And like you said, it's not getting better over time. So um, both with employees, with peers, with managers, with customers, with investors, I think it all plays on the same line.
All right. So, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of leading others?
Wow. Um,
Deep questions as you ponder in the forest.
I'll give you an example that I think will emphasize exactly that point. So, the example I gave you that happened 3 weeks ago, then we are calling people saying, listen, folks, we have this, you call it national security stuff or whatever the name will be, but and seeing people coming with a smile to the office on Saturday night, that all of them rather being with their families and friends, but they come and they're doing whatever they need to do, smiling all the time, being there for 5 hours or something like that. We went out of the office at 3 a.m. Sunday morning actually, so between Saturday and Sunday, and everyone came to the office Sunday morning like we never been in the office a few hours before. And again, having those people connected and see those how the team works, even
Yeah, so I would say that would be pretty rewarding. As fate would have it, we're almost to the end of the podcast here, and
you saying that that's very rewarding.
yeah, absolutely. You froze for a second there, Yoav, but you were talking about how people work so hard on a Saturday, came in, and they showed up Sunday still smiling. I don't know if I missed anything in there that you might want to repeat.
Yeah, yeah. The last point I said that pushing people forward to get them to their next level of their careers and see people personal development. I think those are one of the best rewards that you can get as a leader. Seeing your people getting better and better and better than you, I think that's for me the best thing that you can see as a leader.
That's so cool. Yep. Grow your replacements, right? And if they're better than you, then even better. You left the place better than
Yeah,
when you were there, when you found it.
yeah.
So all great stuff. I can't believe we're almost at the end of our time here. 3 minutes left. So we're going to do the lightning round. I know you and I have done this before for my Patreon after the Dawn of
Yeah.
Drones. But I'm going to ask you again for this audience. So Yoav, what is your favorite book and why?
So my favorite book is Hard Thing About Hard Things. Um, the reason I pick this book every time, and I think last time I told you that that's kind of my Bible for business or for leadership, because you see it's kind of rolling the story of a very successful business eventually, but you see all the hiccups and all the challenges they have on the road to get there. And it's very practical book. I extremely like it, and I find myself going back to that again and again. So I think that's one of the best ones. And I will say another one because of the topic of this conversation. So there is a great book by Simon Sink called Leaders, Why Leaders Eat Last or Leaders Eat Last. I think that's also a very good one for this topic that we're talking about today.
No, great stuff. He has so many great TED Talks and
Oh
books
yeah,
that
he's
he's
great.
put out, Simon Sinek. I've actually used him even in my Homeland Security class and strategy
Yeah,
class just to kind of show, about leadership.
yeah.
And all right, so we kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but maybe not. Who is your hero and why?
So, like last time, what I said that my heroes, and it's not a single person, my heroes are all the entrepreneurs out there that are starting businesses and companies from 0 to 1. I think that's extremely tough. And getting the decision to do that, you are taking so much on yourself. And people sometimes, or most of the time, they see only the headlines, the good headlines. 99% of the time is that how good it is. People raise money, people sold companies, people do exits, etc. But they don't see the other 99% that going through so many hard challenges, both on personal level and on the company level. So those are my really heroes, trying to do new stuff in the world we are living. I wouldn't say not necessarily doing our world a better place, but some of them really are. I think those are the real hero of the world today where we're living.
Well, there's so many of them out there, especially in the tech industry. So you've got a lot of people to emulate and look up to be sure. And
Yeah.
then last thing, what's the one thing that you learned along the way about leadership? The one thing that you'd really want to leave here with others.
So that's one of the points I put as during the episode. But the one thing that um, being comfortable with not being the best one in something you're doing, it takes a lot of confidence to be there because when you are starting to lead people, you think that you need to be the fastest runner, the best shooters, like I said. And I give the example from the army because that's where I started my leadership career, if you will. And I think once you have this understanding, that's where you can be much more free with yourself and with your people, and push them to be better, and push yourself to be better, and push the organization you work with to be better. I think this is the main point for me that people need to understand, and better early than later, but any stage will be good.
Well, thank you so much, Yoav, for taking this time with us. This was a great conversation, and I know I learned a lot as always, and I'm sure other people did too. Please enjoy your vacation with your family. Hang up this computer and just have a blast. And looking forward to seeing you again in person at some upcoming events. So thanks again to Elsight and for everything that you all do. Really appreciate this time. Well, that's all she wrote, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.